The gun barrel gleamed in the fading light, steady as death. Cora Whitfield stood between the banker and the only thing she had left in this world: 500 acres of Wyoming dirt, the cabin her father built, and a promise she swore on his grave she'd keep. "You want this land," she said, her voice hard as flint. "You'll have to shoot me for it." Behind her, a man she'd met exactly 3 hours earlier stood frozen, a marriage certificate still warm in his coat pocket. Neither of them had expected this. Neither of them had expected anything that came after. But that was later. It started that morning, when the stage brought a stranger to a desperate woman who had run out of time. Cora woke before dawn on the day she was supposed to lose everything. The light came pale and cold through the window. She dressed in her father's old work shirt, too big in the shoulders, and braided her dark hair with shaking hands. Outside, the wind moved through the cottonwoods like a hymn for the dying. The bank's deadline was noon. By law, the Whitfield ranch would be forfeit unless she met one impossible condition. She had to be a married woman. Her father's will had been clear. No single woman could inherit. He'd written it before he died, thinking he was protecting her, thinking some man would naturally appear to make it all legal and proper. He'd been wrong. Cora was 28. The men in Sweetwater either feared her sharp tongue or wanted her land more than they wanted a wife. She'd rejected 3 proposals in the past month. Men who looked at her like she came with the property deed, who calculated her worth in acres and water rights. She would not be owned, but she would not lose this ranch either. The stage was late. Cora stood outside the depot, gripping the advertisement she'd sent east 3 weeks ago. Wanted. Husband. Marriage of convenience. No affection required. Partnership only. She'd listed the terms like a business contract. She'd received one reply. "Miss Whitfield, I am a widower, 34, no family, no prospects. I can read and work. If you need a name on paper, I can provide that. Yours in practical terms, Owen Marsh." The letter had been plain, honest. It asked for nothing. That was why she'd answered. The stage rattled into view, dust rising behind it like smoke. Cora's heart slammed against her ribs. The driver climbed down, followed by 2 passengers, a woman in a feathered hat and a man. He stepped onto the platform and removed his hat. Tall, lean, with dark hair going gray at the temples. His face was weathered, quiet. His eyes were brown, careful. He looked at her like he was trying not to assume anything. "Miss Whitfield." His voice was low, steady. "Mr. Marsh." They stood 3 feet apart, strangers bound by desperation. "You're certain?" he asked. "Are you?" He nodded once. "I gave my word." The preacher was waiting at the church. Reverend Hale had known Cora since she was a child. He looked pained as he opened his Bible. "Cora, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Owen stood beside her, hat in hand, shoulders square. He smelled faintly of leather and train smoke. His hands were scarred, capable. When the Reverend asked if he took her as his wife, Owen answered without hesitation. "I do." When it was her turn, Cora's voice came out stronger than she expected. "I do." They signed the certificate. Reverend Hale pressed it into Owen's hands. "May God grant you both more than you bargained for." Outside, Cora turned to Owen. "The banker will be at my ranch by noon. We need to ride." They took her wagon, the horses straining as she snapped the reins. Owen sat beside her, silent, watching the land roll past. She felt his presence like a weight she hadn't expected, not heavy, just there. "I won't ask anything of you," she said, eyes on the road. "You can leave after the deed is done." "Where would I go?" She glanced at him. His face was unreadable. "I meant what I wrote," he said. "I've got no place else. If you'll have me, I'll work." Something in his tone, no demand, no expectation, made her chest tighten. They reached the ranch just as a black carriage appeared on the horizon. Silas Kane, the banker, flanked by 2 hired men. Cora's stomach dropped. Kane stepped down, smiling like a snake in a Sunday suit. "Miss Whitfield, noon has arrived." "Mrs. Marsh," Cora corrected. She held up the certificate. "I'm married." Kane's smile vanished. He snatched the paper, studied it, his face darkening. "This is a fraud. It's legal and witnessed. It's a sham." Kane's voice turned cold. "Judge Farrow will hear about this." One of his men stepped forward, hand drifting toward his gun. Owen moved, not fast, not violent, just stepped between Cora and the threat. "You'll want to think carefully," Owen said quietly. Kane's eyes narrowed. "This isn't over." The carriage pulled away, leaving dust and danger in its wake. Cora exhaled, her hands shaking now. Owen turned to her, his face still calm. "He'll come back," she said. "I know. You didn't sign up for this." Owen looked at the ranch, the cabin, the hills, the sky stretching wide and endless. "Maybe I did." The first night, Owen slept in the barn. Cora didn't argue. She lay awake in the cabin, staring at the ceiling beams her father had cut and raised. Outside, the wind carried the sound of cattle and crickets and the creak of the barn door. She'd married a stranger. She'd tied her fate to a man whose past she didn't know, whose heart she couldn't read. But when Silas Kane's hired gun had moved toward her, Owen had stepped forward without being asked. That meant something. Morning came clear and cold. Cora found Owen already working, fence posts straightened, firewood stacked, the water trough repaired. He moved with quiet efficiency, no wasted motion. She brought him coffee. He accepted it with a nod. "You don't have to earn your keep in one day," she said. "Habit," he replied. "I'm better with my hands than my words." Over the next week, Owen became part of the ranch like he'd always been there. He rose before dawn, worked until dusk, asked no questions. He was careful around her, never too close, never familiar. At meals, they ate in companionable silence. But Cora watched him. She saw the way he gentled the horses, the way he fixed things properly instead of quick. She saw the sadness that lived behind his eyes, the kind that didn't heal fast. One evening, she asked, "Your wife? How long ago?" Owen stared into the fire. 3 years. Fever took her and our daughter both, within a week. The pain in his voice was old, but not gone. "I'm sorry," Cora said. "I came west because staying felt like drowning." He looked at her. "Your advertisement offered something I needed. Purpose." She understood that more than he knew. 2 weeks after the wedding, Silas Kane returned, this time with the territorial judge. Judge Farrow was a hard man, not cruel, but bound by law. He sat in Cora's small front room, reviewing the marriage certificate. "This appears legitimate," Farrow said. Kane leaned forward. "It's a business arrangement, Your Honor, not a true marriage. The law doesn't require affection, Mr. Kane. It requires a legal union." Kane's jaw tightened. "Then I invoke the residency clause. A marriage must be consummated and established as a genuine household to qualify for inheritance under territorial statute." Cora's face went white. Owen's hand curled into a fist. Judge Farrow sighed. "He's technically correct. The law was written to prevent fraud." He looked at Cora. "Can you demonstrate that this is a genuine marriage? We live together. We work together. Do you share a bed?" Kane asked bluntly. The question hung in the air like gunpowder. Cora's throat closed. Owen stood. "That's none of your concern." "It's the law's concern," Farrow said quietly. "I'll return in 1 week. If this marriage is not established, the land reverts to the bank." After they left, Cora sat at the table, head in her hands. Owen stood by the window, silent. "I won't ask that of you," she said finally. "I know, but I'll lose everything." Owen turned. "There's a third option." "What?" "We make it real." She looked up sharply. "You don't owe me that. Maybe I'm not offering out of debt." His voice was low. "You've been kind to me. You've treated me like a partner, not a hired hand. I respect you, Cora. Respect. Not love. Not desire. Respect." "That's not enough for what they're asking," she said. "No," Owen agreed. "But it's a start." The week passed slowly. They worked side by side, but something had shifted. The careful distance between them felt deliberate now, fragile. Cora found herself noticing things. The way Owen's voice softened when he spoke to the horses, the scar on his left hand, the quiet strength in his movements. He was not loud or showy. He was steady. One evening, they sat on the porch as the sun set. The sky burned orange and red. "I've been alone a long time," Owen said suddenly. "I forgot what it felt like to sit with someone and not feel lonely." Cora's breath caught. "I've been alone even when I was surrounded by people." He looked at her. "You don't have to be anymore." The night before the judge returned, Cora stood in the doorway of her bedroom. Owen was reading by the fire. She'd made a decision. "Owen." He looked up. "I don't want to lose this ranch. But I won't use you." He set the book down and stood. "What if I'm willing?" "Why?" He crossed the room slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. "Because somewhere between that stage and this moment, I stopped thinking of this as a contract." Her heart pounded. "What is it now?" "A chance," he said quietly. For both of us. She stepped closer. I'm afraid. So am I. But when he offered his hand, she took it. Judge Farrow arrived at noon. Silas came beside him like a shadow. Cora stood on her porch, Owen at her side. For the first time since the wedding, he stood close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Farrow dismounted, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Marsh, Your Honor, I've come to make my assessment. Kane smirked. This should be brief. But when Farrow stepped inside, he saw something that made him pause. The cabin had changed. Owen's coat hung beside Cora's shawl. 2 cups set on the table. The bed, visible through the open bedroom door, showed signs of 2 people. Small things. Real things. Farrow walked slowly through the room, then turned to them. Mr. Marsh, why did you come west? Owen met his gaze. I was a widower with nothing left. Cora offered me a purpose. And now she's my wife. In every sense that matters. Farrow looked at Cora. And you, Mrs. Marsh? Cora's voice was steady. I married Owen out of necessity. But I choose to stay married to him because he's a good man. He works beside me, not above me. He listens. He's kind. She paused. I didn't expect to care for him. But I do. Owen's hand found hers. Kane stepped forward. This is performance, Your Honor. Enough, Farrow said sharply. He signed a document and handed it to Cora. The marriage is legitimate. The land is yours. Kane's face went purple. You can't. I can and I have. Good day, Mr. Kane. As the banker stormed off, Cora stared at the paper in her hands. It was over. The ranch was safe. Owen stepped outside. She followed. Thank you, she said. He shook his head. Don't thank me for something I wanted. You wanted this? He turned to face her fully. I wanted a place to belong. I found it. Not just the land, Cora. You. Her eyes stung. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. He smiled faintly. But we've managed so far. Over the following months, the ranch flourished. They worked as true partners, Cora managing the books and breeding stock, Owen handling repairs and expansion. They learned each other slowly, carefully. Owen discovered that Cora sang while she worked, old hymns her mother taught her. Cora learned that Owen carved small figures from wood when he couldn't sleep, leaving them on the porch rail like gifts. One night, after a long day, they sat by the fire. Owen was mending a bridle. Cora was sewing a torn shirt. I never thought I'd feel this again, Owen said quietly. Feel what? Like I was home. Cora set down her sewing. I never thought I'd want someone to stay. He looked at her. I'm not going anywhere. She crossed the small space between them and kissed him, tentative at first, then certain. When she pulled back, his eyes were bright. I love you, she said. I didn't plan to. But I do. Owen cupped her face gently. I loved you the moment you stood between that banker and your land with nothing but your father's rifle and your pride. She laughed, tears streaming. That was before you even knew me. I knew enough. Winter came hard that year, but the cabin stayed warm. They worked side by side through snowstorms and frozen mornings. They talked late into the night. They built something neither of them had believed possible. Not just a marriage, but a partnership rooted in respect and growing daily into love. By spring, Cora stood on the porch watching Owen work with a new colt. Her hand rested on her stomach, where a secret was just beginning to grow. He looked up and saw her. His face softened into the smile he saved only for her. He walked over, kissed her forehead. What are you thinking? He asked. That I almost lost everything trying to save this ranch alone. And now I know the ranch was never the thing worth saving. She took his hand. We were. Owen pulled her close. Behind them, the land stretched wide and green under the Wyoming sky. The cattle grazed peacefully. The creek ran clear. Somewhere in Sweetwater, Silas Kane was probably still bitter. Judge Farrow had moved on to other cases. Reverend Hale had been right. God had granted them more than they bargained for. Cora Whitfield had placed an advertisement for a husband out of desperation. Owen Marsh had answered out of loneliness. Neither of them expected to fall in love. But standing together on the land they'd fought for, built on, and made their own, they understood something the law could never legislate and no contract could contain. Love wasn't the requirement. It was the reward. And it was worth everything.